for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth, I am the light, illumine, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this New Year's video with me here today. So happy New Year. We are finally in a new decade, and I just really, in spite of my current conditions, as I'm still kind of processing and coming into my own, I wanted to share some messages of love and inspiration anyway for this year ahead. So I have some messages here in my golden book for us to see. But first I want to say a few words of how challenging it has been to move through 2019. And I know that we all understand that a year in itself has no substance. It is the experience of life that holds a specific substance for us, a specific memory. So as we're kind of letting that go, we're letting go of the heaviness of the year, we're letting go of the good and bad, because in the end, as you know, there is no such thing as an external happening for us, but still each year has a specific overtone and a theme and a mastery and a guidelines we're working with. So in my work that I do on Patreon called the Ascension, this whole year has been sort of pronounced and experienced as the goddess liberation. So this is the year in which a life force was being liberated through the physical body for the preparation of what we call the resurrection of Christ. And I will be speaking more about this month on Patreon. So I'm really hoping that this year will bring more Patreons to the work that I do, because so far the people there in the group have been really thankful. They've been really grateful for what I've been sharing in my authentic experience, because it sort of helped them to understand their own, and it helped them to move along, because this is the path of Christ, and it's a path of Christ embodiment. And I was just recently shown how the Christ has so many layers and levels that it's not just a one thing or a one experience, but it's a gradual movement of this, what we call the Christ love, in order to penetrate through every aspect. And Spirit has recently called this the three aspects of the Christ, which coincidentally also correspond to what I've been talking about in my Cosmic Union courses and the mastery work. That's the three portals of our union, which are the crown, the heart, and the root. And these levels of Christ are known as Christ the Lord, Christ the devotee or the servant, and then Christ the Savior, who is the liberator. And that happens at the final level of matter and density, because it has to be resurrected within the union of the Christ, which is the embodiment of Christ by knowing both light and dark in our experience, and then eventually illuminating that experience so that there's nothing else left in our body but the flame of Christ. And so as much as this 2019 year for me has been like a little mini personal hell, literally I've been physically in my body experiencing the atrocities, the obstructions, the manipulations, the enslavement of what this hell means. You know, in the biblical sense, it's very much archetypal, although many people understand it as the entity, the devil, fighting a war, or Christ fighting a war with the entity called the devil or Satan. And yet this is the inner mastery, this is the inner harmonics that we are sort of needing to go through. And it's not just the wishful thinking, like the Christ the Lord is known as our full awareness of the Christ, but then we have to know all of the other three aspects of Christ for us to truly know what the resurrection of Christ means. And for us as a collective of human beings, for humanity to move from that biblical, endorsed almost understanding and moving it into the illumined understanding of Christ, it's been happening for eons of time, and it's been really difficult. So as these pushes are occurring through our own body, I was literally shown in the last few days of the year that as we're being pushed, and we're pushing these energies, they're actually being liberated through our own bodies. We're literally helping the earth to move. So she's being moved and pushed through this portal of union herself. And Earth, as you already know, is moving through a different space in the cosmos. It's an uncharted territory. It's a new unknown. And yet it also has a foundation, as you know, because this liberation that was a 3 numerological year in itself brought us to this 4-pillar year. For me, 4 is the 4 of Wands in tarot is known as that pillar. It has 2 wands on each side. So it's also the twin soul card because it represents the union of both polarities, and each of them already has a double. Each of them is already a twinning essence in its own, and then they come together and create an archway. That's the Four of Wands basically. But it's a more allegorical kind of understanding as well. It's an archetypal as well as an actual practical thing. So we are actually stepping into a Four of Wands kind of year. Can you imagine that? So I've been tuning into the essence. Well, actually for me, all it took is just wake up in that essence today. And Spirit has given me the word. And I actually even pulled a tiny, these mini angel cards that you can pull. And they're just a word and a tiny mini drawing of an angel that's very kind of cartoon-like. And they're just so fun. And I love these cards. I have them next to my bedstand, and on my bedstand. And the word read acceptance, and then there was a doorway and an angel there, and it said welcome. And I've heard the words welcome home in the last final few days of 2019. It was just so challenging because I was literally, there was a war being fought, but it was not an external thing. Well, of course, external events do trigger our inner processing experiences, but it was an actual little war going on. This entire year, these energies were trying to alchemize themselves in the melting pot called our body. The body is still so mystical that we don't really understand it, and it takes a few very courageous people who are delving deeply into the mysticism and, as you know, the metaphysical understanding of the body. And so through the last few vestiges of this push that I was being moved through, and it was actually literally, I went through the last push was the most difficult one, and that's when the angels came in, and I was just begging on my knees for any type of guidance because I was just living in a fog-like kind of experience for so long. And they came and they said, the last push is always the hardest. This breakthrough is always the hardest, but you can do it. And I was like, no, I can't. I literally can't. I can't. I'm going to give up. I'm giving up. I'm going home. Just send me back home, because I suffered so much, and it wasn't until I was on the other end of the suffering that the understanding of the suffering in a physiological sense came through, and I will be speaking about that on my Patreon page. But this liberation of the goddess, as you know, in the mystical teachings, the goddess represents the body, the form, that which can hold the essence of spirit. And to liberate the body out of all the constraints and everything, it takes so much guts, it takes such courage, it takes perseverance, and it takes power. Power is not the same as love and light, as you well know. So the path of the Christ is not only the path of love, light. It is a path of, like I said, it's knowing both light and dark, and in its full acceptance. And once you accept it and you radically let go, and we are letting go of all of that control, which I'll talk about why physiologically that is still in our DNA, and what we were seeded through as human beings, and what kind of intercepted that beautiful human experiment of love. And I'll go deeper into that because the full understanding came, and it was just so physiological in its sense that it's true, I'm not a biologist in any way, I've been schooled like anyone else, but everything that comes through me is a revelation of spirit, and it comes when I pass a certain degree, a certain initiation, and then the understanding and the awareness come. But this entire year has been like living in a straitjacket. And no matter how much I did, how much I tried to, I was shifting the energies the entire year. It was always like deep darkness, trying to find a way to shift it. How? Each time there was a new skill being needed, or what I used before no longer worked. And, eventually there was nothing else that worked. That just the final initiation is just that letting go. It's allowing the divine mercy to take care of everything. It's that divine grace that I was praying for the entire year, because I was sort of living in a physically difficult experience, and yet at the same time I wasn't guided to move forward. I wasn't guided to make any drastic moves to physically make a change in my life, to alter it, because I had to go through this internally. And it was a very confusing thing. It was like living in that state of yes, no, should I, shouldn't I, what, yes, no. It was just so difficult. And for me, as a knower and someone who always knows and always receives guidance about these metaphysical matters and the understanding of the cosmic Christ, it was very difficult not to know how to physically in my life engage in being present, and what to do to make my life physically well, and a life of wellness and pleasantry and well-being, instead of all this suffering and difficulty. And yet somehow nothing came. And there are only two options. Either there's hell on earth, or I've chosen this, I've pre-planned this, and this is all an initiation leading me through a tunnel. And when you're in the tunnel, I've spoken about this before, you are only blessed with the tunnel vision, and that's a very difficult thing. And in that time, your senses are sort of like blurred because you're temporarily developing higher senses. And when I came to that final like push, I understood that I no longer understand anything, that all I want to be is be within the Christ. And I sort of passed this interesting initiation and had a vision that was very mystical that I'll explain on Patreon and in this month's transmission, because it was all about the blood of Christ and what this means for us, not just metaphysically and the awareness of spirit, but physically on a very practical level. They gave me the understanding of suffering. And I was like, oh my gosh, when you understand it, it's like it's gone. It's like you understand it at the most crucial understanding of the human experience that's becoming illumined. And it's like, wow. From that day on, from that day forward, it's like nothing is the same. Although it is, but it's not. So we're not just making a pass from one year to another. I'm happy because this year for me, numerologically, personally, it is a 1 year. So for me, it's like a yay, finally a new start. And I've been in the peak of Sadai Sati experience, if you know Vedic astrology, for 3 freaking years. And it's been like, just save me from this. It's been so difficult. And towards the last steps, it's like, who am I even? I felt like my spark is gone. I no longer can do the things. So what will you do if your spark is gone? How will you be in the world? What the things you love to do? You are nothing. We are nothing without that spark. Our creativity is void. It's void, of course. It's sorry guys. I've almost shown you, demonstrated here today that you can fall in the hole. It's like I'm kind of sitting like this on this rocky terrain, and this fall has actually shaken up all of my cart's gears. My spark is obviously back because I'm already entertaining you, and it was like this humor and this playful side of me was just gone. And I have to tell you, literally the last day of 2019 was the only good day in my life. And I was like, what? You had to wait the entire year to feel good for one freaking day and evening? It was so hilarious. It's like someone's making a joke, It was like, is all just this divine joke? And we've all perhaps felt this way. And the people who've been with me for a year or longer on Patreon have developed a deeper understanding because I've shared every part of it. I've shared about every initiation, every revelation. I've always been like that. I have to share. That's why I'm here, to demonstrate this path of the embodiment of Christ. And like I said, again, we have a very limited understanding of what the Christ is, and we judge experiences that are bad and negative, or people who are in typical turmoil kind of experiences, because we don't understand things and other people's experiences just by having our own. And we're each at different levels, and I've been talking about this on Patreon as well, because Spirit really wanted to reiterate the fact that we don't know what others are going through and what kind of experiences they have shaped and designed through their own soul. We can sometimes barely understand our own, and we're each at a different level of attaining the Christ, but it's all for this resurrection of Christ through the human experience, because Spirit has been, or what you can call the Holy Spirit, the primordial life force, the beautiful force of love that creates everything and demonstrates everything just by being, has been trying for eons of time to achieve that through the human experience. And yet, as you know, there are so many experiences coming from the perspective of a human being, just a vessel for experiments of other beings and other living essences, I would say, that are not attaining the Christ, that don't understand what it is to live through love. And I've been going through a difficult awakening, and maybe one day, as I've promised, I'll share about that, and I've already shared about it on Patreon. It's been like a wake-up call to what's really being done to the human. And for you as a Christ, you have to master that in your own body, whatever you call it. You might call it evil forces, you might call it other beings, other light beings who are fallen angels, the progenitors, all of these things. It's difficult for a human to realize that these things happen and that they exist in the universe. And I've been having many channeled sessions with Jesus the Christ and what he's been experiencing, and has been also leading the way in his own way. And he said, this time it's even more difficult because these forces are pressing even harder. And for those who came in this lifetime to demonstrate the resurrection of Christ, they're not having it easy. But he's there, and as many other fellow illumined beings are. And we're all brotherhood and sisterhood of the light. And he was just reminding me, he said, remember when you've chosen this experiment? He said, I know you. And he said, you were like, I can do it all. He said, I was one of the bravest beings from the perspective of what was taking place or was about to take place, and how much I wanted to just take on. Because we all experience a different segment of the Christ in each lifetime. But to take upon so much in one lifetime, he said, that's that's courageous. And there wasn't always a time in my life when I was aware that it can be so difficult. When I first moved here, like, let's say 6.5 years ago, I didn't realize it's going to be so difficult. I was beginning a new kind of journey in these Alps, and I was so excited. It was all magical for me. It was like a kid being drunk on ice cream, literally. And I was just so happy and giddy and excited, and I started this path, and I just started the chariot movement, and it just things kept coming, and the messages that I was always, as you know, pouring them forth. Sometimes it was weekly and ongoing, and it was actually 10 years because I began this awakening and sharing in 2010, and then started Ascension Pioneers work in 2011. Yeah, so it was intense, you know. It was really intense for me, and to end this decade, not just as a collective, but as a decade of this work for me was like, wow, and starting something new and the breakthrough. And I never realized that this would be it, because no one showed me 10 years ago, you are on this path and you're going to be resurrecting the Christ and you will move into darkness. Because if someone would tell me that those 10 years ago, I would freak out. I would say, no, I'm just a kid, you know. Because that's how I felt at the beginning of the journey. We all are just kids. Whenever we begin as humans, we're always newbies at that level of newness that's coming in. And even in my personal attainment right now, although I've mastered a lot, I've passed through so many difficult tests, I still feel like a kid, and that's how it's supposed to feel. So when people give out this presentation of, oh, they're these holy saints now, and Ascension is supposed to be easy and it's all love light, it's not like that at all. Because once you understand the human experience as well as the human experiment on so many levels of both shadow playing out versus light, right? You will know that it's freaking difficult, and it takes great courage. And that's why Jesus said, well, only the courageous ones will choose it full-heartedly, in totality. And maybe some people are still at the, you know, at the level of just gathering so much understanding about this, and some people have already plunged in, but it doesn't matter. What it matters is you are where you are, and it was personally designed for you, through your soul, and your soul essence knows. And this is truly a year of surrendering into that, just trusting that even though it's difficult, it's how it's supposed to be. And all we have to do is take each step of the way, instead of taking it so drastically and, you know, it's so big and it's difficult, because then we freak out. It's how we are. We need to take it lightly, because the human vehicle, the human bodies are still sensitive in a way. They're still vulnerable. They carry memories, and we all carry like a stigma of the bad experience. So this year, 2019, for me was 9 years worth of crap all in 1 year that I was carrying as a load. And at the end, it sort of burdened my heart, and it was so difficult to move through, and I thought I was literally going to have a heart attack, physically speaking. And when I broke through, I can't explain this, but it was like at the same moment, almost, in the same day, I was on my deathbed, and a few hours later, I was resurrecting the Christ, and I had initiation of the blood of Christ. I'm like, what the heck is happening? Is this even real? And I wouldn't speak in this enthusiastic kind of way if I didn't break through. I would still be like, and crying, because I was literally crying for 2 months. And for me, I have to be authentic. I have to speak it how it is. It wasn't, I can't say it wasn't easy, because it doesn't describe it well. It was freaking nightmare. It was hellish. It was hell on earth. But there were good moments, of course, as you know, when each breakthrough carried a revelation and had guidance. And to be honest, in this darkness, I've never received more guidance when I passed through on the other side than I did all the other years together when I was still within the light. And then when the light began to descend in my body in order to reach that aspect which we call Christ the Savior, because that aspect will resurrect through the body. And that teaching of the final initiation of Christ was trying to be hidden in the Bible and all the scriptures, because no one wanted the humans to truly break free. and to be liberated, right? And I came here as a teacher of physical ascension. Well, I don't call myself a teacher, I'm just a demonstrator. I demonstrate this path through my own experience. And the way I do it is just like a simple human being. That's it. I don't wear any crowns, no fancy jewelry or bling, sometimes. But it's just a demonstration, like Joshua has been doing it as well. Like, if I can do it, so can you. But you have to take into respect and into account your own experience. That's it. So this year we are in this 4 energy, which is building blocks, its foundation. I see the 4 of Wands, and Spirit has given me a word, the year of Christ's love and union. And I've pulled 2 cards today. The first 2 cards, when I asked, let's describe this year, I had love, and then I had the card union. I was like, wow, this is so aligned. It's beautiful. So I wanted to give you some messages as well from these cards that I pulled today. And yeah, here are the cards. We have, I'll show you one by one. We have love. Oh, just have to be careful they don't fall in the hole. We have love. And there's a beautiful vision of a man or a fairy man embracing a fairy woman. And it's just that feeling of being held, like, oh, finally I can enjoy my accomplishments. You know, it's 2020. It's also 2-2, right? 2-2 is like, keep the faith in love. We have that. Then we have the union. And it's not just union between a man and a woman, although in this path of illumined Christ union, that is very important because it is the destination. But it's also about having seen and unseen allies and companions and friends, and about joining forces and camaraderie and companionship. It's the same card here in the Love and Light Oracle, and it is the cooperation and partnership bring great rewards. And here you have Christ showing, pointing to his heart. And I've literally had a heart meltdown and a breakthrough. And wow, you know, when you think you know, when you're in that Christ the Lord awareness, you're like, I know it. And a lot of people, when they just want to stay at that Christ the Lord, that's all that they're ready to be and take in, because it's easy to have visions or be just in the awareness or call yourself a mystic, or, you know, mystic, it's fine, it's great. You know, we're all mystics in a way because we all live a life that's mystically unknown. But to be an embodier of the Christ, you can become if you don't have all 3 levels. You don't explore and attain all of these 3 aspects of Christ. So then we have leave a trail of love as you walk the earth. We are leaving a trail. This is trailblazing. And I was shown that those of us who've done that or are going to, there's still people who, I'm being shown that towards the end of the year, which is, as you know, typically the astrological year will denote a true beginning of the year, which will be April timeline, right? When we have the Aries season beginning. So there's going to be a lot of people attaining their level of Christ's resurrection as well towards that point. And then we're going to start to take from our fulfillment, which is, you know, demonstrated with this full moon, and we're going to drink from that fulfillment, and it will fulfill us to the extent of then overflowing and helping others and extending our hands, helping hands, help others reach that destination. Helping others is helping yourself. Same card. It will be a year of, like I said, that 4 of Wands. It's like nothing that's ever achieved in aloneness cannot be shared, and it always has to be shared. If you truly achieve it alone, it will be automatically shared. Otherwise, you haven't really achieved it yet. That's kind of the message. So I also see here like this resurrection of Christ, because the being is being lifted off. It's like, that's how I felt at the final vestiges of my initiation. I felt like Christ needs to lift me off, and it just needs to take care of this body. It needs to take over this body from everything that was kind of, because we have so many forces and impulses that operate through our blood, and they're magnetic, and I'll explain this as well, that we don't know. These are just not just our own unconscious impulses from our own unconscious psyche, but many impulses that we might say they come from astral realms, and they're all impulsing us. And a lot of the things we do are not truly impulsed to our own self, let alone ourself as Christ, the I am Christ. So at the end, I started this meditation of the I am the Christ, which is different than knowing Christ as the Lord, but becoming. I am the Christ. that was just amazing. So I took also 3 cards from the Labyrinth Oracle, and they were all kind of demonstrating a very intuitive, very insightful year. It's like, oh my God, the tunnel vision is finally coming to an end, because we have Psychic card, we have the Enlightenment card, and we have the Guidance card. Super amazing. What else can you say? So we have your psychic powers are being enhanced. Use this gift wisely. So whatever we've been through, it's all being guided, right? And we see a pyramid there and a watchful eye, and that eye has overcome the labyrinth. So even though there was a labyrinth, and this is the Labyrinth Oracle though, but still, it's like the pyramid is even about these mountains, as you can see. It's like when you go through this initiation, and that's why the ancient Egyptians had these initiations also. They coincided with the pyramids that they built, and there's a lot of knowledge there, but still, as you can see, it's even topping the mountains that are in the back and kind of lower down. So this is like moving mountains in a sense of an essence that then also helps to move others and the planet as she's pushing ahead. And then we have enlightenment with, you are in the presence of all knowing, be that presence. So it's like, as you can see, there's a reflector, and it's like scanning, and it's like, yeah, now we're seeing with the reflector vision. And it's coming from this mandala of light, which is, we can see as our third eye. When I had my own third eye initiation so many years ago, I always in my sleep entered into a beautiful cosmic mandala space, and then it just opened up. And now this mandala feels like it's returning to earth, and there's a rose there, a red rose, which is also signaling for me the blood of the Christ. And we know that also is the essence of Magdalene as well. She is the feminine who represents the blood of the union through the feminine sacred Christ expression, because the cosmic Christ is both the cosmic masculine and the cosmic feminine Christ. And it's like this mandala is now returning on earth and just scanning and saying, now I will reflect where I will build my structure from the foundation of what I achieved. And then we also have the guidance, where there's a thread of wool here, and it's just being gradually revealed. You know, when you kind of like throw a thread of wool, it's just, you don't know where it's going to go, and it can make many circles, and you don't know where it will end up, but you're just following that thread and you're trusting. So it says you're receiving guidance, follow your own path. This will be, like I said, a very difficult year, different year in terms of the difficulty we've known. And we also have change. There's a balloon. Every time you see an air balloon, it's good news. And it's like we're being moved from one space again into another space. And it's Earth herself as well, not just us. There's a beautiful white horse that's in charge of this balloon. So it's definitely Spirit. It's like Spirit is in charge of this movement. And then I asked for 3 colors to show me the demonstration of this year, which is amazing, because when I started to paint these stones that I did so many years ago, which I no longer do, but I did back then, I sort of painted the Cosmic Christ stone, and I saw the color as the mixture of brown and gold, which turned up bronze. I remember painting it in a bronze kind of color, because I thought that's kind of Christ painting that gold over the soil of the earth, which is brown. And it's brown we associate with the mud, right? And earth, it's like going deep down into the soil. And for me, what comes up is a beautiful mashup of bronze. And what's the first card when I got today when I asked for the color of the year? Bronze. I was like, no. And the funny thing is, I even spent my New Year, which was the first evening when I danced after so many weeks and weeks of just feeling terrible, and like a patient, not a pioneer. I was literally a patient, wearing my jammies all the time. And I was even wearing this top, this recycled sari, right, Indian silk, and it had a bronze color. And I was like, wow, I even started my New Year in that color, which was fantastic. And here, bronze is known to strengthen your body. So for me, this experience of resurrecting the Christ has left a toll, of course, on my physical body, but it sort of grew me in another way. And for us, we will really have to strengthen our body this year, and for the body to start flowing again through the aspect known as the blood of the Christ. The next one was, you won't believe this, because again, we got a mixture. I'm just going to show you both together. We got gold and auburn, which again is a reddish kind of brown, and it's again the soil and the forest. So it's bringing that gold, the light of illumination and of the Christ consciousness into the soil of the earth. And what do we get? We get the bronze. And when I was getting all these cards, I was like jaw-droppingly excited, and I just wanted to share this with you who've been here with me. I know there's not a lot of people watching since my videos change a bit throughout the year, but I'm still happy for those of you who are here. I'm very grateful and thankful that you are watching. So we have attracting abundance and that cornucopia, and you know, it's not just physical abundance, but the abundance achieved through Christ and divine mercy and compassion. And then we have Auburn with ground yourself. And that ability of demonstrating the Christ will create a replenishment of strengthening the vitality of the body. So we're going to have quite a few interesting alignments in January as well, but I'll be talking about that more on Patreon. So I really hope you will have a beautiful and happy new year. Enjoy your own journey wherever you are. I hope it will be a good start for you, and smiley faces, right? Whatever it is. And please welcome to join my Patreon working page called the Ascension at any time you would like to. There's 3 levels of how you can join. I really hope, not hope, but I pray that this year more people join in, so they will start following this path, that there's many more Christs in the physical embodiment in the making. And I'll see you on the other side. Have a happy, joyful 2020. I can't even say it yet. It's still so new. I can't help it. Happy 2020 and a new beginning for you. We all deserve it. And as always, love, wisdom, and power. Take care. Bye.